before we blast off, say hi in the comments. It may seem small, but it helps the algorithm beam this out to more sci-fi fans. And I seriously love seeing who's part of the crew.
The message propagated through the Coalition's vast communication network, a desperate plea cascading across thousands of worlds. The Hush, as they called themselves due to their telepathic nature, had composed the signal with such potent emotional resonance that receiving species experienced physical discomfort, distress, terror, extinction fear. Elder Milalath's 6 translucent appendages trembled as she addressed the emergency council, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with distress patterns that no Coalition member had displayed in 3,000 years of recorded history. They have consumed the neural system, she communicated, her thoughts converted to sound by the chamber's interpreters. 11 billion consciousnesses extinguished in 17 rotations. The council chamber, a cathedral-like structure of living crystal that had grown organically over millennia, dimmed its ambient light in response to the collective grief. Representatives from 19 spacefaring species sat in horrified silence. The Chloris representative, a sentient plant colony, shed pollen that crystallized mid-air, their form of weeping. "Show us," requested Vaxil, the Coalition's chief archivist, his crystalline body refracting light into mathematical patterns that indicated mournful curiosity. The chamber's center filled with holographic imagery, causing several representatives to emit involuntary distress signals. The Trilix diplomat fainted, its gas sac body deflating in shock. The images showed a living darkness, billions of insectoid creatures, each the size of a small transport vessel, descending upon a verdant world. Where they touched, matter simply dissolved. Forests, oceans, cities of impossible beauty, all converted to more of the swarm. "We have designated them the Void," Elder Merilath continued, her thought voice quavering. "They are not intelligent as we understand consciousness. They simply consume our deterrent technologies," asked the Photoran representative, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate mechanical shell. Ineffective. The Hush deployed their full array of pacification fields. The Void has no mind to pacify. The Council had never known true war. The Coalition had evolved beyond violence before leaving their respective homeworlds. Their technological advancement had focused on cooperation, communication, environmental harmony. Their ships were works of art, designed for exploration and diplomacy. Their stations housed gardens, libraries, centers of scientific inquiry. "We have 17 systems in the Void's projected path." Vagzil's thoughts projected along with complex 3-dimensional calculations. "Evacuation is impossible within the time frame. We lack sufficient vessels." "Then what option remains?" asked the Photuran, its energy state fluctuating with distress. Elder Melis bioluminescence, dimmed to near darkness. "We have sent a distress call to all corners of the galaxy." The silence that followed felt gelatinous, oppressive. "All corners?" The Chloris representative's pollen tears intensified. "Even to uncontacted regions." "Yes." Milo's acknowledgement caused a ripple of horror through the Council, including the Forbidden Zones. The Coalition had long catalogued worlds considered too dangerous to approach, death worlds, planets with extreme environmental conditions, aggressive pathogens, or, most terrifying, evolving sapient predators. "We cannot." The Trilix diplomat had regained consciousness, its gas sac reinflating with indignation. "These species will contaminate everything we've built. They know only violence. We die without them," Mila stated simply. The chamber darkened further as the truth settled over the assembly. On Earth, Dr. Eleanor Reyes hunched over her workstation, dark circles under her eyes testifying to 3 sleepless nights. The signal had overwhelmed every communication system on the planet simultaneously, perfectly translated into all 7,119 human languages. "Help us? They are coming. We cannot stop them." Governments panicked, military forces mobilized, religious leaders proclaimed apocalypse. Yet the scientific community focused on one impossible fact. The message originated 47 light-years away, yet arrived instantaneously. "It's quantum entanglement communication," Reyes explained to the hastily assembled United Nations Security Council, her voice hoarse from endless briefings. "Technology centuries beyond our capabilities." General Havers, Joint Chiefs Representative, leaned forward, his face scarred from 3 wars, remained impassive. And we're certain this isn't a hoax. The transmission contains embedded mathematical proofs demonstrating faster-than-light communication. No human could have created this. President Kwan's expression hardened. Your recommendation, Doctor? We respond. Ray has met the assembled gazes. They're asking for help against something that's killing them. Whatever's out there scares a civilization advanced enough to master quantum communication. And what exactly could we offer such an advanced civilization? Asked the Russian representative. General Haver's laugh contained no humor.
War. We've perfected killing each other for millennia.
Perhaps they need precisely what they lack. The battleship Artemis maintained geosynchronous orbit above the Pacific, Earth's newest and deadliest vessel. Captain Tariq Rahman studied the alien signal for the 20th time, unable to shake his unease. Captain. Commander Park approached, tablet in hand. Orders from command. Rahman examined the directive, his expression unchanging as he processed the impossible. Verify this. Already did, sir. Presidential authorization. We're making first contact. Rahman stared through the viewport at the blue-green Earth below. In 20 years of naval and space service, he'd never imagined this mission. Assemble the crew. The ship's 400 personnel gathered in the launch bay, faces betraying mixtures of disbelief, excitement, and fear. Rahman stood before them, steady despite the weight of history. 3 hours ago, Earth's governments unanimously responded to the alien distress call. The Artemis has been selected as humanity's representative. He paused, letting the magnitude set. Our mission is straightforward. We will reach the coordinates embedded in the transmission and render assistance against whatever threat these beings face. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. This is not an exploratory mission. This is not a diplomatic mission. This is a combat deployment against an unknown enemy that frightens a civilization far more advanced than our own. Rahman's voice carried clearly through the bay. I need each of you to understand what that means. Silence fell. Prepare for departure in 6 hours. Weapon systems at full capacity. This is what we trained for. His gaze swept across his crew. We carry humanity's flag into the stars for the first time. We will not go gently. Ambassador Lithid's forearms performed the gesture of profound sorrow as the coalition detection grid registered the approaching vessel. It had appeared at the edge of the Harmony system only moments before, using a crude but effective form of faster-than-light travel that left radiation signatures their scientists hadn't encountered in millennia. They actually came, whispered Elder Vargsil, his crystalline form pulsing with mathematical patterns of disbelief. The vessel approaching their station resembled nothing in coalition records. Where their ships were elegant, organic curves designed to harmonize with space-time, this craft was angular, armored, bristling with what could only be weapon systems. Its hull bore scorch marks and impact scars, evidence of previous combat. Deathworlders, Miralath's thought voice trembled. From the third planet of star system J3742, designated Earth. Their response pattern was unexpected, Lith communicated while reviewing the data. They mobilized military assets immediately. Their decision-making structure prioritized defensive capabilities. Have they no diplomatic core? Asked the Chloris representative. Their entire civilization operates on competition principles, Merlith explained. They evolved as pursuit predators on a highly unstable planet with extreme environmental variation and aggressive biodiversity. The approaching vessel sent a simple transmission. Coalition station. This is Earth battleship Artemis, requesting docking clearance. We are responding to your distress call. We come to render assistance. The council members exchanged thoughts too complex for vocal translation. Fear, desperation, hope, disgust. The words Earth battleship had sent waves of discomfort through the assembly. The concept was alien, a vessel designed primarily for warfare. Grant them access, Elder Marlalith decided. We have no choice. Ambassador Lith approached the communication array, its bioluminescent patterns steadying with forced calm. Earth vessel Artemis. This is Harmony Station. Approach vector transmitted. A pause, searching for a concept utterly foreign to coalition experience. Thank you for answering our call. The docking bay of Harmony Station could have housed 20 vessels the size of the Artemis. Captain Rahman led a small contingent through the airlock, each step measured and deliberate. They had prepared for anything: hostile environment, gravity differences, atmospheric incompatibility. Nothing had prepared them for the beauty. The station interior resembled a living cathedral. Walls of translucent material shifted colors in patterns that seemed almost musical. Gardens grew throughout open spaces where dozens of utterly inhuman beings moved with graceful purpose. Some floated without technological assistance. Others moved on appendages that defied terrestrial biology. One appeared to be living crystal, and all backed away as the humans entered. Rahman noticed immediately the aliens maintained precisely calculated distances from his team. Their movements showed no aggression, but unmistakable caution. An elegant being approached, humanoid in basic shape, but with 4 arms and skin that rippled with bioluminescent patterns. It stopped exactly 7 meters away. "I am Ambassador Lith of the Coalition Council. Your presence, a pause in the perfect translation, honors us, though it causes biological distress." Rahman removed his helmet slowly, revealing his face. "Captain Tariq Rahman, Earth Vessel, Artemis. We received your distress call. We've come to help." The gathered aliens produced sounds his translator couldn't process. The crystalline being approached, light dancing through its transparent form. "You brought a warship," it stated, the translated voice containing mathematical patterns that conveyed profound discomfort. "We brought our most advanced vessel," Rahman corrected carefully, "designed for deep space operations and defense." "Defense," the ambassador repeated, the word clearly foreign. "Yes, we require defense. The void approaches our core systems. 17 worlds, 11 billion lives." Rahman looked around the beautiful station, noting for the first time what was missing. No weapons, no defensive systems, no evidence of military thought in its construction. "Show us what we're facing," he said quietly. The holographic display activated, showing the approaching void swarm. The vast living darkness consuming entire worlds. The Coalition's ineffective response. The billions already lost. Rahman's officers watched in silence, their military training barely containing their horror at the scale of destruction. The lieutenant beside him whispered a prayer. The tactical officer's hand instinctively moved toward her sidearm. "Your weapons?" Ambassador Lith asked, noticing the gesture. "Can they harm this enemy?" Rahman studied the footage, his mind calculating firepower, tactical approaches, strategic options. The Artemis carried nuclear armament, biological weapons, experimental energy cannons, Earth's deadliest technologies. "Yes," he said finally, "but we'll need more ships." The crystalline being's form dimmed noticeably. "You intend to destroy the void completely?" "That's generally the point of warfare," Rahman replied, puzzled by the question. "Complete neutralization of the enemy." The aliens exchanged what appeared to be distressed communication. Ambassador Lith's luminescent patterns pulsed rapidly. "We have never..." Lith struggled visibly with the concept, deliberately ended another form of life. Rahman looked again at the holographic display showing billions of deaths, then back at the peaceful assembly before him. Understanding dawned with terrible clarity. "But that's exactly what you've called us here to do." Ambassador Lith's bioluminescent patterns dimmed to near darkness as it watched the humans transform a section of Harmony Station into what they called a command center. The elegant crystal walls now displayed tactical projections. The meditation gardens housed weapon prototypes. The Harmony pools had been drained to create ammunition storage. 6 Earth vessels had arrived, each more terrifying than the Artemis. The humans called them the Fleet. The Coalition called them an abomination. "They're discussing something called biological warfare," Elder Vagzil communicated, his crystalline 4 vibrating with frequencies that conveyed profound distress. "Their scientist, the female designated Morgan, has requested samples of void biology." "For what purpose?" asked Miralith, though the answer crystallized in her mind with sickening clarity. "To create a targeted pathogen. A disease." Vagzil's mathematical patterns became chaotic with moral anguish. "Designed to kill the void specifically." The Coalition representatives experienced collective physiological distress. 3 Chloris representatives shed toxic pollen in horror. A Trilix diplomat's gas sac deflated entirely. "This cannot be permitted." The Photoran representative's energy shell pulsed with outrage. "To deliberately engineer suffering." "They're evacuating Meridia Prime," Lith interrupted, 4 arms performing the gesture of profound sorrow. The void will reach the system in 7 rotations. 4 billion consciousness bearers require transport. Silence fell, heavy with the weight of impossible choices. Dr. Morgan's laboratory aboard the research vessel Pasteur hummed with activity. She hadn't slept in 72 hours, her eyes bloodshot as she peered through the microscope at void cellular structures. Fascinating, she murmured. Their biological network transmits information faster than our neural systems, almost like quantum entanglement at a cellular level. Captain Rahman stood nearby, his face impassive but his eyes betraying concern. Can you develop something effective? I can create a targeted pathogen that attacks their unique cellular structure. She straightened, rubbing her burning eyes. But I'll need test subjects, live specimens. Rahman nodded grimly. The Artemis will secure them. Ambassador Lith entered the laboratory, its bioluminescent patterns flickering with distress frequencies. The translator interpreted. You intend to capture living void unit. Dr. Morgan needs specimens to develop an effective countermeasure, Rahman explained. And this countermeasure. It will cause suffering. Morgan and Rahman exchanged glances. Ambassador, Morgan said carefully, the pathogen will disrupt their cellular functions and prevent reproduction. They'll die. Yeah, die, Lith repeated, the translator unable to fully convey the emotional resonance behind the word, deliberately. That's how you stop something that's killing you, Rahman said, more harshly than intended. You kill it first. Lith's skin darkened to deepest indigo. There has been no deliberate killing in Coalition space for 3,000 years. Then with respect, Ambassador, Rahman replied, that's why you're losing. The evacuation of Meridia Prime descended into chaos as the void approached faster than projected. Coalition transport vessels, designed for comfort rather than capacity, struggled to evacuate even a fraction of the population. The Artemis and 2 other Earth vessels, the Orion and the Hyperion, established a defensive perimeter around the main spaceport while Coalition ships loaded civilians. Lieutenant Amara Okafor commanded the ground team, 50 human soldiers in combat armor positioned at strategic points throughout the evacuation zone. How many more to evacuate? She asked the Coalition coordinator, a tall insect-like being called Trill. 3 million still await transport. Trill's mandibles clicked nervously. But our sensors detect voidrescence approaching from the northern continent. They move faster than predicted. Okafor's expression hardened. We'll hold them back. Just get your people on those ships. Trill's compound eyes reflected fearful incomprehension. You cannot stop them. There are billions in the swarm. You number only 50. Watch us, Okafor replied, checking her weapon. Just focus on the evacuation. The void approached like a living tsunami. Billions of insect-like creatures flowing across the landscape, dissolving everything they touched. Plants, animals, buildings, all converted to more void biomass. Okafor positioned her soldiers along a natural ridgeline overlooking the evacuation site. The planet's harsh conditions, thin atmosphere, high gravity, scorching temperature, had already claimed 1 human life, but the remaining soldiers adapted, using the environment to their advantage. Hold until they reach the marked line, she instructed through the comm, then hit them with everything we've got. The first wave crossed their boundary. Okafor gave the signal. The ridge erupted with weapons fire. Explosive rounds tore into the alien mass, each blast destroying dozens of creatures, but for every one that fell, 10 more emerged behind. They're adapting to our attack pattern, shouted Sergeant Chen. Changing formation. Okafor watched as the swarm split into 3 groups, 1 continuing frontal assault while 2 moved to flank their position. They're learning, she muttered. Cooper, take your team to the East Ravine. Jackson, West Ravine. Set explosive charges. We'll funnel them through the center. The soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, using the planet's high gravity to slide down into the ravines. Okafor's remaining forces intensified fire on the central group, drawing the Void's attention. The plan worked. The Void concentrated its advance through the center, avoiding the ravines. When the flanking groups reached position, Okafor gave the signal. Twin explosions rocked the battlefield as tons of rock crashed down, crushing hundreds of Void units and blocking their advance through the ravines. All forces, focus fire on the central group, she ordered. For 3 hours they held the line. The evacuation ships filled and launched one by one. Lieutenant Okafor's forces suffered heavy casualties, 15 dead, 20 wounded. Then disaster struck. A new type of void unit emerged, larger, armored, seemingly impervious to their weapons. It breached their defensive line, heading directly for the civilian gathering point where thousands awaited the final transports. Fall back to secondary position. Okafor ordered, but saw immediately it wouldn't be enough. The new void units would reach the civilians before they could establish another defensive line. Private Torres saw it too. Without hesitation, he grabbed the remaining explosives. "Lieutenant, buy me 30 seconds, he shouted through the con. "Torres, what are you?" "Just do it. Focus fire, give me a path." The remaining soldiers redirected their fire, creating a narrow corridor through the void advance. Torres sprinted forward, directly toward the largest concentration of the new void units, explosives clutched to his chest. "Torres, fall back." "That's an order," Okafor screamed into the con. His voice came back calm. "Tell my kids I love them." He disappeared into the mass of void creatures. 5 seconds later, an explosion tore through their ranks, vaporizing hundreds instantly and creating a temporary gap in their advance. "All forces, exploit that gap," Okafor commanded, her voice breaking. "Make it count." The defensive line reformed during the crucial minutes Torres had purchased with his life. The final transports filled and launched, the last coalition civilians evacuated safely. As the human dropships descended to collect the survivors, Okafor took one last look at the battlefield. 23 soldiers would never return home. Ambassador Lith found Lieutenant Okafor in the memorial chamber aboard the Artemis. 23 holographic displays showed the faces of the fallen, small flames burning beneath each image. "Your team suffered great losses," Lith observed, keeping the customary 7-meter distance. Okafor didn't look up. "We knew the risks." "Private Torres?" Lith's translator hesitated, searching for appropriate terminology. "He terminated his existence. Deliberately. For strangers." "He sacrificed himself," Okafor corrected. "For people who couldn't defend themselves." "Why?" The question hung in the air, profound in its simplicity. "Because that's what humans do," Okafor finally answered. "We protect those who can't protect themselves." Lith's bioluminescent patterns shifted to frequencies never before recorded in coalition history, complex emotions beyond their established communication spectrum. "The coalition has existed for 3,000 years without understanding this concept," Lith said quietly. "Perhaps this is why we face extinction." Dr. Morgan hadn't slept in 5 days. Her laboratory had become both prison and salvation as she studied the newest void samples, watching with growing horror as each test showed increasing resistance to her original pathogen. "They're adapting faster than any organism I've ever seen," she explained to the emergency council. Her voice was hoarse, her hands trembling from exhaustion. "The original strain is now only 30% effective." Captain Rahman's face showed the strain of weeks of constant battle. "We can't keep fighting a defensive war. Every retreat costs us coalition worlds." General Harris nodded grimly from his holographic projection. "Intelligence has located what appears to be the Void's breeding ground, a planet they've completely overtaken in the Vega sector." Dr. Morgan looked up from her data, momentary hope breaking through her exhaustion. "If I could get fresh samples from the source, I might develop a more effective weapon. Something they haven't adapted to yet." "That's deep in Void territory," Rahman observed, studying the star chart. "We'd need the entire fleet to reach it." "Then that's what we'll use," Harris decided. "Captain Rahman, you'll lead the assault. The coalition will provide transportation and logistics support." Ambassador Lith, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. "My people will help, but we cannot fight. We have no warriors." "We're not asking you to fight," Rahman replied. "Just get us there. We'll handle the rest." Elder Vaxil's crystalline form pulsed with mathematical patterns, indicating profound realization. "You propose sending your own kind into certain danger to collect samples that might save our civilization." "That's the job," Rahman said simply. "And if this fails?" asked Merilith, her thought voice barely above a whisper. "You risk everything on this gamble." Dr. Morgan's exhausted face hardened with determination. "Then we find another way. We keep fighting until we win or die trying." The coalition representatives exchanged thought patterns too complex for the translator to interpret. Something fundamental had shifted in their understanding of the death world as they had so reluctantly invited into their midst. "There is another possibility," Elder Vergzel said finally, crystalline form pulsing with hesitation. "A theoretical weapon of last resort, developed but never deployed. We called it Stellar Catalyst." "What does it do?" Harris asked. "It converts gas giants into temporary stars," Vaxil explained. "The energy release would be everything within half a light year would be vaporized," Miralath finished. "We developed the mathematics but never constructed such a weapon. The moral implications were unacceptable." Silence fell across the council chamber. "A star killer," Rahman said quietly. "You've had a sun bomb in your back pocket this whole time." "The theory only," Lith corrected, "and it would require someone to trigger it manually after confirming the void had gathered. The radiation would make remote detonation impossible." "A suicide mission," Rahman translated. Dr. Morgan's eyes met his across the table. "Now the Coalition forbids deliberate termination of consciousness," Elder Vasil stated, mathematical patterns indicating moral distress. "We cannot ask anyone to—" "You're not asking," Rahman interrupted. "I'm volunteering." The vast reaches of Coalition space had never witnessed warfare on this scale. 6 human battleships formed the vanguard of an armada of nearly 500 Coalition vessels, the largest fleet assembled in 3 millennia of their civilization. The plan was desperate, born of exhaustion and dwindling options. Ambassador Lith stood on the bridge of the Coalition flagship, watching the tactical display with unfamiliar emotions churning beneath its translucent skin. The Stellar Catalyst, a theoretical weapon their scientists had developed but moral frameworks had forbidden, had been constructed in 7 days by human engineers working alongside Coalition designers. "They understand death intimately," Elder Myleth observed, her thought patterns tinged with a complexity of emotion. "The Coalition had no words to describe. Their bodies are designed for it. Redundant organs, rapid healing, pain tolerance beyond comprehension. And yet they fear it," Lith replied. "They know exactly what awaits, yet still they volunteer." The centerpiece of their desperate strategy was Hyperion, a massive gas giant composed primarily of hydrogen and helium, the perfect fusion catalyst. Captain Rahman would lead a small team to the planet's core in a specialized vessel, placing the device at precisely calculated coordinates. If successful, the device would trigger a chain reaction, converting the gas giant into a temporary nova. Intelligence confirmed what they had hoped. The void was drawn to thermal radiation. Dr. Morgan's calculations suggested the increasing heat from the catalysis initiation sequence would serve as irresistible bait, drawing the entire swarm to Hyperion. When enough gathered, Rahman would detonate the core. The radiation release would destroy everything within half a light year, including whoever triggered the device. "The survival probability is less than 0.0027%, Dr. Morgan informed Rahman as they made final preparations aboard the Artemis. Her voice was clinical, betraying nothing of the anguish beneath. "The vessel's shielding cannot withstand the initial shock wave." Rahman nodded, examining the specialized craft they'd named Firebreak. "I understand. The flight computer could execute the final sequence," she suggested, not for the first time. "A remote detonation." "The void disrupts electromagnetic signals," he interrupted gently. "We've been over this. Someone needs to confirm they've gathered before triggering the catalyst. Someone needs to push the button." Morgan's professional facade cracked. "You don't need to do this yourself, Tariq." He touched her shoulder briefly. "That's exactly what I need to do." 15 volunteers had stepped forward to join Rahman's mission, knowing they would not return. Lieutenant Okafor, Sergeant Chen, Dr. Reyes, and 12 others. All had written final messages to loved ones on Earth who would never know the truth of their sacrifice. The remaining crew of the Artemis lined the launch bay as the team prepared to board the Firebreak. No speeches were given, no ceremony observed. Each human warrior clasped forearms with their comrades in silent farewell. Ambassador Lith approached, breaking Coalition protocol by reducing the customary 7-meter distance to mere steps. Rahman noted how the aliens' bioluminescent patterns had changed in the weeks since their first meeting, adopting frequencies that mirrored human emotional states. "Your willingness to terminate your consciousness for others?" Lith struggled visibly. "We have no concept for this in our language." "Sacrifice," Rahman supplied. "It's what people do for each other when it matters." We have existed for thousands of years without understanding this concept, Lith admitted. Perhaps this is why we face extinction while you survive your death world. Raman smiled slightly. We'll make sure you survive this one too. The small stealth vessel Firebreak approached Hyperion's swirling surface through a cloud of void units. Billions had already gathered, drawn by the increasing thermal signatures radiating from the gas giant's core, where the catalyst had begun its initialization sequence. Dr. Elena Reyes monitored the quantum sensors from the science station. The concentration is beyond anything we've recorded. Nearly 70% of the total void biomass has converged here. Right into our trap, Lieutenant Okafor observed grimly. Raman nodded, watching the massive gas giant filling their viewports. Its atmosphere churned with violent storms larger than Earth itself, bands of amber and crimson swirling in hypnotic patterns. Final approach, Sergeant Chen announced from the pilot station. Entering upper atmosphere in 3 minutes. The Firebreak shuddered as it penetrated Hyperion's outer layers, using the planet's storms as cover. Void units passed nearby, unaware of the tiny human vessel in their midst. At precisely the calculated depth, the ship stabilized within a relatively calm pocket in the turbulent atmosphere. Primary catalyst reads nominal, Dr. Reyes reported. Initialization at 87% and proceeding according to simulations. Raman checked the mission clock. We have 18 minutes to reach minimum safe distance. As they turned to leave, disaster struck. A rogue pressure wave slammed into the Firebreak, damaging the main propulsion system. The vessel lurched violently, alarms blaring throughout the cabin. Engine 3 is down, Chen called out, fingers flying across the controls. Losing stability control. Can we reach escape velocity? Raman demanded, moving to the engineering station. The engineer's face told him everything. Not with this damage, we've lost too much thrust capacity. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. The mission parameters had just changed from dangerous to terminal. The Firebreak lacked sufficient power to reach safe distance before detonation. Reduce crew to minimum, Raman ordered. 5 stay, the rest evacuate in the emergency pods. Before anyone could protest, he continued, his voice leaving no room for argument. The pods have enough thrust to reach safe distance. We need the primary crew to ensure the catalyst activates properly. Sir, Okafor began. That's an order, Lieutenant. After a brief, tense silence, 10 crew members entered the escape pods. Raman remained with Okafor, Chen, Reyes, and the chief engineer. Their task was now simpler and more terrible. Keep the ship functional long enough to ensure the catalyst activated properly, knowing they would not survive to see their success. 10 minutes to ignition, Reyes announced as the last pod launched. Above them, the void noticed the small crafts leaving Hyperion's atmosphere. Thousands of units broke formation to investigate, following the pods outward. They're tracking the pods, Okafor reported, watching the sensor display. Raman opened the emergency channel. Coalition Command, this is Raman. Our position is compromised. Begin Operation Sunforge immediately. From a distance of 2 light minutes, the combined human and coalition fleets watched as void units swarmed around Hyperion, drawn by the increasing heat signature from the catalyst. The massive living cloud entirely enveloped the gas giant. 5 minutes to ignition, Dr. Morgan announced aboard the coalition flagship, her eyes fixed on the data stream from the Firebreak. The catalyst is stable. Ambassador Lith and Elder Vagzil stood silently nearby, their forms radiating patterns that the coalition had no words to describe, emotions evolved from witnessing human sacrifice. On the Firebreak, Raman and his skeleton crew worked feverishly to keep the damaged ship stable within Hyperion's turbulent atmosphere. 2 minutes, Reyes called. Raman opened the final communication channel. This is Captain Tariq Raman to all ships. The catalyst is active and stable. Prepare for detonation. He paused, then added, It has been my honor to serve with all of you, human and coalition alike. Whatever happens next, remember that we stood together against extinction. 1 minute before detonation, the impossible happened. The Firebreak's emergency systems routed enough power to the damaged engine for one final thrust. We have propulsion, Chen shouted. Attempting emergency ascent, the small ship rocketed upward, fighting Hyperion's gravity with everything it had. Behind them, the catalyst reached critical temperature. The gas giant's hydrogen core ignited. For an instant, a second sun blazed in coalition space. The energy wave expanded outward at nearly the speed of light, vaporizing everything in its path. 90% of the void died in that single moment. The firebreak, racing desperately ahead of the destruction, was caught in the outer edge of the shockwave. The tiny vessel tumbled end over end, systems failing catastrophically as the radiation front overtook it. 3 days later, against all odds, a heavily damaged escape pod was recovered by a Coalition patrol ship. Inside, barely alive, were Captain Rahman and Lieutenant Okafor, the only survivors of the firebreak's crew. Rahman regained consciousness in the Coalition medical facility, his body wrapped in translucent healing membranes. Ambassador Lith stood nearby, bioluminescent patterns pulsing with what he now recognized as profound emotion. "The others?" Rahman asked, his voice barely audible. "Chen and Reyes did not survive," Lith answered gently. "We recovered their bodies from the pod. They appear to have given you their environmental protection suits." Rahman closed his eyes, grief washing over him. "And the void?" "Destroyed. The remaining units were isolated and eliminated with Dr. Morgan's final pathogen version. The swarm is gone." Rahman turned his face away, tears streaming silently. "Victory, but at unbearable cost." "Your people call this grief," Lith observed. "We have never experienced it as you do. The severing of bonds formed in combat, the loss of those who shared danger. It's part of what makes us human," Rahman whispered. "It is beautiful," Lith said, surprising him. "Terrible, but beautiful. To feel so deeply for others that their absence causes physical pain. This is something the Coalition never understood before you came." 1 month later, in the Grand Chamber of the Coalition Council, humans stood as honored guests. The hall had been redesigned. The elegant crystal structure now incorporated elements of Earth architecture, angles and arches among the flowing curves. Ambassador Lith addressed the assembled representatives, its translator now capable of conveying emotional resonance alongside meaning. For 3,000 years, the Coalition believed violence had no place in civilization. The void taught us that survival sometimes requires strength we did not possess. Lith turned to Captain Rahman. Now recovered from his injuries, the humans showed us that courage means facing annihilation, not just for oneself, but for others, even those different from you. Elder Vaxel stepped forward, crystal form blazing with complex mathematical patterns. "Today, we formally invite humanity to join the Galactic Coalition, not as members but as protectors, a role unique to your species." Rahman, standing with Dr. Morgan and the other human representatives, bowed slightly. "Earth accepts this honor. We hope to learn from your wisdom as you have learned from our strength." Across Coalition space, memorials were built honoring the human sacrifice that had saved their civilization. On Earth, the knowledge that humans were no longer alone in the universe and had already saved that universe from destruction transformed society overnight. The remaining void units were eliminated over subsequent years. Coalition worlds, guided by human advisors, established their own defense forces for the first time in their history. The Coalition's technological genius, combined with humanity's strategic thinking, created a new form of defensive capability, unlike anything either civilization had imagined alone. In the vast darkness between stars, Coalition scientists placed beacons warning any who might listen about both the deadly void and the even deadlier humans who had stopped it. As Rahman often said in the years that followed, the universe called us monsters and feared our death world. Then it needed monsters to fight for it, and found instead that we were guardians all along, waiting for a galaxy worth protecting. And somewhere in the infinite cosmos, other threats stirred, unaware that the once peaceful Coalition now had teeth, and the once isolated humans now had purpose. A combination that would transform the future of all sentient life, standing ready to face whatever darkness might come next.